Welcome to the Reds Trends, your ultimate home for everything Liverpool FC. Stay ahead of the game with the latest breaking transfer news, tactical analysis, match reactions and daily updates straight from Anfield. Whether it's Premier League title battles or Champions League nights, we bring you all the action and insights you need as a true fan. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a beat. Up the Reds, Liverpool set to sign Ibrahim Mbaye, the PSG winger, who could become Anfield's next sensation. The summer transfer window is racing toward its dramatic conclusion, and Liverpool may be preparing one of the biggest surprises of the entire transfer period. Just when supporters thought the major business was slowing down, a new name has exploded into the transfer conversation. Ibrahim Mbaye, the exciting Paris Saint-Germain winger, whose pace, confidence and fearless attacking style have made him one of the most intriguing young talents in European football. And now, according to the developing transfer story being discussed around the football world, Liverpool are pushing toward a deal to bring Mbaye to Anfield before the summer transfer window closes. This is not simply another name being thrown into the rumour mill. This is the kind of transfer that could represent Liverpool's vision for the future. A young player, a fearless attacker, a footballer capable of playing wide, attacking defenders 1 versus 1 and creating chaos in the final third, and potentially a player who could arrive at Anfield with something enormous to prove. The clock is ticking. Liverpool know it, Paris Saint-Germain know it, and Mbaye knows it. The closer the transfer window gets to its final hours, the more intense this story could become. The name that suddenly appeared. For much of the summer, Liverpool's transfer conversations have focused on established stars and high-profile names. But Ibrahim Mbaye represents something different. He represents potential. He represents development. He represents the kind of signing that could look sensible today and spectacular a few years from now. Mbaye has emerged through the Paris Saint-Germain system, a club renowned for producing and attracting technically gifted attacking players. His development has attracted attention because of the qualities that modern elite football demands from wide forwards: acceleration, directness, ball control, movement, confidence, and most importantly, the courage to attack defenders rather than simply play safely. That profile is exactly why Liverpool would be interested. At Anfield, supporters have always appreciated players who are prepared to take risks, players who receive the ball and immediately look forward, players who can turn a quiet moment into a dangerous attack within seconds. Mbaye has that kind of personality on the pitch, and Liverpool could now be preparing to give him the biggest opportunity of his young career. Liverpool's plan. The most fascinating part of this potential transfer is not simply the player's talent, it is what Liverpool could be planning for him. A move to Anfield would not necessarily mean Mbaye immediately becomes the centrepiece of Liverpool's attack. Instead, the club could view him as an investment in the next generation. Liverpool have repeatedly demonstrated the importance of building a squad capable of competing today while preparing for tomorrow. Mbaye fits that philosophy. He is young enough to develop, technically gifted enough to contribute, and ambitious enough to believe he can eventually become a major player at the highest level. Imagine the scene. Mbaye walks through the doors at Anfield. He looks around at the famous stadium, the red shirts, the Liverpool crest, the Kop, thousands of supporters waiting for the next superstar. For a young player coming from Paris Saint-Germain, it would be a life-changing moment, but the real challenge would begin immediately afterward, because wearing the Liverpool shirt is one thing. Earning the trust of Liverpool supporters is another. Why Mbaye Liverpool would not be considering this move? Simply because Mbaye is young. They would be looking at his footballing characteristics. The winger possesses the kind of attacking mentality that can be extremely valuable in the Premier League. English football can punish hesitation. A winger needs to make decisions quickly, receive, turn, accelerate, attack, create, shoot. Mbaye's development has been built around that kind of attacking football. He is not the type of player who wants to spend the entire match standing on the touchline waiting for the ball. He wants involvement. He wants defenders moving backward. He wants space. And when he sees an opportunity, he wants to attack it. That mentality could make him particularly exciting for Liverpool supporters. The PSG connection. The Paris Saint-Germain connection makes this story even more intriguing. PSG have enormous expectations surrounding their young talents. Every academy player who breaks through knows that the competition for places is fierce. The club operates in an environment where elite stars are constantly arriving. For a young winger, opportunities can therefore become extremely valuable. And Liverpool could be looking at the situation and asking one simple question: could Mbaye become a star if given the right environment? That is the gamble. And it is exactly the kind of gamble that can transform a club's future. Liverpool would not simply be buying a player. They would be buying potential. They would be buying ambition. They would be buying the possibility that Mbaye develops into one of Europe's most dangerous young attackers. The deadline clock. But there is one major problem: time. The summer transfer window is approaching its final stage. Every hour matters. Every conversation matters. Every negotiation can change the direction of the deal. Liverpool cannot afford to move slowly if they genuinely want Mbaye. A transfer like this requires agreement between multiple parties: the player, his representatives, Paris Saint-Germain, Liverpool, and potentially several other details that must be resolved before the paperwork can be completed. That is why deadline day transfers are so unpredictable. A deal can look impossible in the morning and suddenly become real by the evening. A player can be preparing for one destination before receiving another call. A club can reject an offer and then return to negotiations hours later. And that is exactly why Liverpool supporters will be watching this story closely. The moment everything could change. There could come a moment when Liverpool make their intentions completely clear. An approach, a proposal, a negotiation, a breakthrough. And suddenly the Ibrahim Mbaye story goes from speculation to something much bigger. Imagine the reaction around Anfield, supporters scrolling through their phones, transfer accounts exploding, breaking news graphics appearing. Breaking: Liverpool reach agreement for Ibrahim Mbaye. That would immediately become one of the talking points of the transfer window, because this is not a household name signing that everyone has been expecting for months. It would be a statement about Liverpool's recruitment strategy, a statement that the club is looking beyond today's stars, a statement that the next generation is already being identified. MBAI's biggest challenge. Of course, there is another side to this story. Moving from Paris Saint-Germain to Liverpool would be an enormous challenge. The Premier League is unforgiving. The intensity is relentless. The physical demands are enormous. And Liverpool supporters expect attacking players to contribute immediately. And Mbaye would have to adapt. He would have to learn. He would have to become stronger. He would have to understand the tactical demands of Liverpool's system. But perhaps the most important thing would be patience. Young players rarely become complete stars overnight. There will be mistakes. There will be difficult matches. There will be moments when he loses the ball. There will be moments when supporters demand more. But if Liverpool believe in his ability, the club could provide the environment necessary for his development. And if that development happens quickly, the rewards could be enormous. The dream of Anfield for Mbaye, this could be more than just another transfer. It could be the beginning of a completely different chapter. Paris gave him the foundation. Liverpool could give him the stage. Anfield could give him the pressure. The Premier League could give him the challenge. And Liverpool supporters could give him something every young footballer dreams about: a chance to become a star. Imagine Mbaye receiving the ball in front of the Kop. One defender in front of him. He pauses, a quick touch, a burst of acceleration. The defender turns. Mbaye drives toward the penalty area. Another defender arrives. He cuts inside. The crowd rises. One pass, one shot, one moment. That is the dream. And Liverpool could be betting that Mbaye has the talent to create those moments for years to come. A new chapter for Liverpool. If the transfer happens, it could become one of the most interesting stories of Liverpool's summer, not because Mbaye would necessarily arrive with the pressure of being the club's biggest signing, but because of what he could become. Liverpool would be betting on tomorrow. They would be betting on development. They would be betting on a young PSG winger with the ambition to make his name in England. And that is where the excitement begins, because football transfers are rarely about what a player is today. The most fascinating transfers are about what a player could become. Mbaye could arrive as a promising youngster. The deadline day storm. The story had already captured the attention of Liverpool supporters. But now the situation was entering a completely different level. The closer the summer transfer window moved toward its final hours, the louder the whispers became. Ibrahim Mbaye was no longer simply a name being discussed as a promising PSG winger. He had become a potential Liverpool target. And if Liverpool truly intended to bring him to Anfield, the next few days could decide everything. There was no room for hesitation, no room for unnecessary delays, no room for negotiations that dragged on forever, because transfer windows do not wait for anyone, and Liverpool knew that. The message from Merseyside inside Liverpool, the thinking would be simple. If Mbaye is considered part of the club's long-term plans, then why wait? The winger's age, attacking qualities and enormous potential make him exactly the kind of player who could become increasingly valuable as the years pass. Liverpool have always understood the importance of identifying talent before the entire football world catches up. That is the difference between signing a player at the beginning of his rise and signing him after he has already become a global superstar. The first option requires vision. The second requires enormous money. Mbaye represents the first. A player whose ceiling could be far higher than his current reputation suggests. And that is what makes this potential move so fascinating. Liverpool would not simply be chasing a footballer. They would be chasing the possibility of discovering their next attacking sensation. PSG have a decision to make, but there is an obvious obstacle. Paris Saint-Germain are not a club that simply allows promising talent to walk away without considering every consequence. Mbaye has developed within an elite environment. The club understands his potential, they understand his market value, and they understand that a young winger capable of becoming a major European star could be extremely valuable. That means Liverpool would have to convince PSG that a deal makes sense. And that is where negotiations become complicated. Liverpool may have their valuation. PSG may have theirs. The players' representatives may have another idea entirely. Suddenly, one transfer can become a three-way battle. Liverpool want the player. PSG want the right conditions. Mbaye wants a pathway toward the next stage of his career. Somewhere in the middle, an agreement must be found. Mbaye's dream. For the player himself, the possibility of joining Liverpool would be enormous. Imagine growing up, dreaming of playing at the highest level, and suddenly receiving the opportunity to move to one of English football's most famous clubs. Anfield is not just another stadium. It is a place where young players can become heroes. But it is also a place where expectations can become enormous. The moment a Liverpool player walks onto that pitch, supporters expect courage. They expect intensity, they expect commitment, and attacking players face an especially difficult test. They must entertain, they must create, they must score, they must make something happen. For Mbaye, that pressure could become motivation. Because talented young footballers rarely want an easy road. They want the challenge. They want the opportunity. They want the chance to prove that they belong. Why Liverpool could be perfect. There is another reason this move could make sense. Liverpool can offer Mbaye something that is extremely difficult to guarantee elsewhere. A pathway. Instead of immediately demanding that he become the team's biggest star, the club could allow him to develop within an elite squad. He could train alongside experienced players. He could learn the tactical demands of Premier League football. He could experience the physical intensity of English football. He could gradually become more comfortable, and every appearance could teach him something. That development process could be crucial. Because Mbaye does not need to become perfect overnight. He needs the environment that allows his potential to become reality. Liverpool could potentially provide that. The Anfield factor. There is something different about playing at Anfield. Players talk about it, opponents feel it, young footballers dream about it. And the atmosphere can transform a match. For a winger, that energy can be especially powerful. Imagine Mbaye receiving the ball near the touchline with thousands of supporters demanding that he attack. One step forward, then another. The defender backs away, the crowd gets louder, Mbaye accelerates, the cop rises, a cross, a shot, a goal. That is the kind of relationship Liverpool supporters want with their attacking players, and if Mbaye can develop that connection, the possibilities become enormous. But there is a big question. Can he handle the Premier League? That question will inevitably dominate discussions around the potential transfer. France and England offer different footballing challenges. The Premier League is fast. It is physical. The schedule is demanding. Defenders are aggressive. Space disappears quickly. A player can be brilliant one week and struggle the next. Mbaye would have to adapt. But adaptation is part of the journey. Every great player who moves into a new league faces a learning curve. The important thing is whether the player has the mentality to keep improving. And that may be one of Mbaye's biggest strengths. He is young, he has time, he has ambition, and he has an opportunity. The transfer clock starts ticking. Then comes the most dramatic element of the entire story: time. The transfer window is approaching its conclusion. Every day that passes increases the pressure. Liverpool cannot spend weeks thinking about whether to act. If they believe Mbaye is the right player, they have to make their intentions clear. This is where football transfers become psychological battles. One club waits, another club pushes. An agent makes a phone call, a new proposal arrives, someone leaks information. Supporters begin speculating, and suddenly the entire situation can change within minutes. That is the madness of deadline season. A secret plan? Could Liverpool already have a plan? Could discussions have been taking place quietly behind the scenes? Could the club be preparing an approach that has not yet become public? These are the questions that supporters will be asking. And sometimes the most important transfer negotiations happen away from the cameras. Clubs do not always announce their intentions immediately. They may prefer to work quietly. They may want to understand the player's position before making an official move. They may want to know whether PSG would even consider negotiations. That could explain why a story like this can suddenly explode. One moment, almost nobody is talking about a player. The next moment, Liverpool supporters are asking whether he could be wearing red. The role of the player. Ultimately, however, Mbaye could have an important role in determining where this story goes. If Liverpool becomes serious, the player's attitude could matter. Does he want the challenge? Does he want regular opportunities? Does he believe Liverpool is the right place for his development? Does he want to remain in Paris and continue his journey there? These are questions that only the player and his representatives can truly answer. But if Mbaye sees Liverpool as the perfect next step, the transfer could become much easier to push forward. Players can influence transfers. Sometimes a player's desire can turn a difficult negotiation into a successful one. Sometimes it can do the opposite. That is why Liverpool supporters will be watching every development. The possibility of a breakthrough. There could be one moment when everything changes. Liverpool make contact. PSG respond. The players' representatives become involved and the numbers are discussed. The conditions are examined, and suddenly the impossible begins to look possible. A breakthrough does not necessarily mean a completed transfer, but it can change the entire atmosphere. Once clubs believe an agreement is achievable, negotiations can accelerate rapidly. That is when the phones start ringing. That is when documents begin moving. That is when medical arrangements can become important. That is when supporters begin refreshing social media every few seconds. And that is when a transfer story can become a worldwide headline. Liverpool's attack could get even more dangerous if Mbaye eventually arrives. Liverpool would gain another young attacking option with enormous room for development. His versatility could become particularly useful. A modern winger cannot simply rely on speed. They need movement. They need intelligence. They need the ability to combine with teammates. They need to understand when to stay wide and when to attack central spaces. They need to press. They need to recover. They need to contribute without the ball. Mbaye would have to develop all of those aspects. But if he does, his value to Liverpool